Welcome to the Fit Bridge, a podcast connecting you to conversations that help bridge you to success within the health and fitness industry. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Fit Bridge podcast. I'm your host, RC Hahn, and today I bring you another RC, Mr. Rodney Corn. Rodney is the Director of Education at Eleiko, as well as being the co-founder of PTA Global and co-founder of Feel Soma. He has over 30 years experience as an educator in our industry, having had helped write content and curriculum for numerous global brands, including NASM. Now, during this conversation, he enlightens us with how to become a better educator. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this episode doesn't apply to me because I'm not a teacher, a speaker, or a coach of any kind. However, I urge you to still tap in and absorb this wisdom, as I do feel that it is applicable to everyone and anyone, as we all have conversations and communicate with others on the daily. I really appreciate his approach on how to engage those of whom you're speaking with to better equip them with the information it is you're trying to deliver that leaves them feeling empowered. And if you are a health and fitness professional, well, you're welcome in advance for the wisdom he shares on how to create the perfect program design for your clients. This conversation is overflowing with knowledge, and Rodney is just such a genuine soul that really brings heartfelt information and experience to the table. I'm grateful you're here and listening today, and I hope you take something away from this episode. Let's get started. Hello, Rodney. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You having a good day so far?
Yeah, it's been a great day. A little rainy, but not bad.
Same. I know we're in two different area codes on different places in the country, but it must be across the nation that it's a rainy day today. But I know we're going to bring some sunshine with this conversation. I want to start. Give us the 411. What's happening at Eleiko? What are some highlights? Give us the buzz.
Yeah, so Eleiko always has stuff going on. So with the company being about equipment, accessories, and education, kind of a triad, one-stop shop, so to speak. We got a fantastic contract with the United States Navy to provide education for them. That's a mainstay in what we do besides the weightlifting, powerlifting, functional training, and the tactical training course that we've been launching and working with a lot of different military bases. So we're looking and ramping up for pretty big education year, especially weightlifting, powerlifting become very big in the facilities and training, and it's not something that's typically taught through a personal training organization. So that's where we've really been able to excel in that. And we got some new products that are coming out. We've got a Prestera rack and rig system, which is just awesome. It's awesome. It's an ecosystem. So everything actually fits and matches and links to it. So you can build it, create it, shapes, multi-dimensions. It's so awesome. So it's kind of cool to work with a company like that. So.
Yeah, that sounds really fun and neat to hear about the education piece. I know you guys are heavy in that space, and that's a conversation I want to flow into here in a little bit, but also really excited to get under that new piece of equipment you mentioned. I'm feeling like a Lego build your own weightlifting section space. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I just had a meeting and they showed a bunch of different configurations that people are playing with and looking at that we've come up with. And it's just so awesome how you can create a whole entire space and segment it. And it's amazing.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Keeping fitness fun. Love that. As well as you mentioned, incorporating that weightlifting. That is definitely a piece that, most listeners probably are aware of the benefits for all ranges of life's, phases you're in when that weightlifting and how to properly, execute those moves and program design and stuff. So love what you guys are doing there. I want to hop into some fun stuff before we go into the nitty gritty of education. I know you've learned and taught all across the globe. It's like 4 different continents. You're only missing a couple, man. I say just hit Antarctica, just check them all off. But you've been all around the world, educating. I'm sure you've got some fun memories, some highlight moments. Do you have a couple of unique experiences that really stand out in your travels over the years that you feel comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah, there's many. The one that I think that I would share really, I think, ties into the theme of what we're doing here. But I had to go to Singapore to teach a workshop, and And it wasn't just Singapore. There were multiple stops. So it was about a 2 or 3 week trip. So it was going to be a long trip. And I'm coming from California. So to get to Singapore, it's a good 30 hours.
Yeah, that's a healthy flight.
Normally. So
oh no.
Flying to Singapore, I had to go from here to LAX. LAX got there, flight was canceled.
Oh no.
So flight was then delayed till that evening, that got canceled. So it didn't go out till the next morning. So I'm in LAX. I can't sleep, number one, on the airplane, or number two, in an airport. So I leave there, finally get on the airplane. It's delayed the next day. Long story short, I get to Singapore 60 hours later. 60
How
hours. So I'm supposed to be there on a Thursday to have a day to kind of get ready, and then we're going to teach on Friday. We start Friday in Singapore at 8 a.m. sharp. I walk into the hotel in Singapore after 60 hours of no sleep at 6 o'clock in the morning. I walk in, I see my partner that I'm teaching with, long time friend, Dwyer out of Australia. Walk in, he just looks at me and he's like, "How you doing?" It's like, "Where am I?" And go into the hotel room, shower, come back down, eat, we go, and I had to teach for 8 hours. So I say all that because when you don't sleep, you're not really coherent. So I don't really know what I was saying or what I was doing, but it actually ended up being a really, really good. And the kicker was the people who were in the workshop didn't actually know what they were there for.
Oh, that's always good.
Those people that have ever presented or ever done education, every once in a while you go to, especially when you go to a club or facility, sometimes what the fitness director or the general manager says is going to happen isn't necessarily conveyed all the way down to the trainers. So they're all there kind of like, yeah. So how many people are ready for the workshop? What are your expectations? And the hands go up. Yeah, we don't really know what we're here for. Oh.
Just a wide-eyed audience staring at you, and you're wide-eyed staring back because you haven't slept. It's just
which the ultimate story is at the end, after 2 days of teaching, is they were just like, "Oh, this is amazing." So long story short, I say that because that'll tie in probably to something that we're going to want to get into as we go through this process. Is number one, realize that anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared and know your stuff. So you're going to have to suck it up at sometimes. But the trip was amazing. We have funny stories, and it's a great topic of conversation between myself and Ian, because you got to.
That sounds like my worst nightmare. Like I can't function without a solid 8 hours a night. I'm that person. I've got my earplugs, my mask, darkness in the room, silence, the humidifier. I'm like, I need quality 8 hours or I can't function. I can't imagine 60. I would be.
Yeah. And it sounds, people like, "Oh, you didn't do it." It's like, no, I actually did, because I don't sleep. And it was funny because I went from LA, and I was originally supposed to go from LA into Singapore. But what happened is I had to go to Japan. And when I got to Japan, my flight was delayed again. So I had another 4-hour delay. And now I'm just like, so this is all about how do you manage stress, and how do you actually convey and get people to do what they should be doing and you want them to do, even when you have zero tolerance left in you.
Yeah, well, let's hop into that. I think we have very clearly established top quality educator, no matter the environment you're tossed into and the situation you're facing against. Within that, over 30 years experience educating, I know you're going to bring the tips and tricks and skills and tools that those of us need to be quality educators. Is there something, you mentioned those 3 bullets just a moment ago. Are there other attributes or skills you feel like are, crucially necessary when educating others?
Yeah, 100%. And this is something that I wish I knew a long time ago. So if you're listening to this and you're already in the process of educating, or you're looking to get into it, and I don't care where you're at in your journey, the most important thing that no one ever told me, though Neil Spruce, who is phenomenal, as you well know, was a mentor of mine. This is not stuff that you get taught or someone sits you down and says, hey, number one, what can go wrong will go wrong. Be prepared. And when I say what can go wrong will go wrong, be prepared, I mean what can go wrong will go wrong. Be prepared. But the most important thing, RC, the most important thing is know thyself. And I say that because if you don't, and when I say know yourself, it means what are your biases? What are your personality traits? How can those be perceived by other people? It's all about understanding your behavioral style. I look at, there's Marilyn Reed, and I got this from a phenomenal colleague of mine, Bobby Capuccio, who you probably have heard of. Bobby is amazing. And I wish I would have understood what he was talking about 20 years ago, 25 years ago when we met, but after a while it sunk in. But your social style, how you interact with people. Most people don't realize how they're interacting with someone because they just do it. The focus is always placed on who you're educating or who you're training. It's always on the other person. What this industry hasn't done a great job on is what do I need to do and know in order to be able to educate and or train someone, which is in essence one and the same. And it all starts about what are your personality traits? Do you know who you are? Do you know how you can be perceived by certain people who have a different social interactive style? Marilyn Reed used 4 different ones. And there's the expressive person, which I am. And by the way, RC, you are as well.
I was going to put myself in that category. I didn't even hear the other 3, but I was like, that sounds right.
Expressive people. And most people will have like a dominant and then they'll have kind of a subsidiary. It depends on, but most people have a dominant one, expressive. And then there's the directive person. That's the person like, get it done. I don't care about anything, get it done. Don't give me a lot of fluff and butter. Just tell me the gig. And then there's the people who are more analytical. They'll process things. They're slower digesting because they're making sure they have it 100% accurate because they're not going to speak until they actually know what they're trying to say. And then you have the amiable person, which is kind of they're the person that needs a hug. They're the person that they want to chit chat a little bit before we get started and just kind of figure out what's going on. And when push comes to shove, you know what, just do whatever you guys want. So they're all 4 uniquely different. And if you don't know your style, because there's positives and then there's negatives that can occur, then you don't know how well you're actually influencing someone. And as an educator and or a trainer coach, your job is to influence somebody. You're not going to change them, but you're going to influence their ability to change, which is really the reason why you're educating or you're coaching or training. So that, for me, was an eye-opener because the first 6 years of my training, educating career, I should say, it was how much information can I give you and here's how smart I am. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's a cliche, but it's so true. So if you don't know how you potentially can influence somebody with your social styles, the waving of the hands and people talking, they're doing that, that's the expressive person. Well, that can actually create interference and create almost anxiety in people who that's not the way that they communicate. So if you're doing that, you're going fast, you're talking 100 miles an hour, people are just like, whoa. So while you think you're really smart because you can talk really fast and you're just going 100 miles an hour, they're like, slow down. So that's what I say. If you don't have that, you're way behind the 8 ball. Just to keep it simple, it's just you got to know yourself and don't assume that everyone is like you. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's going to talk the same way you talk. They're not going to understand the same way you understand. They're not going to learn the same way you learn. So you have to be variant and you have to have the ability to compromise and it really goes down to have humility, be very empathetic and compassionate. Empathetic is being able to see things from their standpoint. Can you put yourself in someone else's shoes? How would you sound as someone who wasn't like you? And if you can't fathom that, then that's a good place to start, because you'll see that there are some people that they're looking around when you're talking. Doesn't mean they're bored necessarily. Now, if they're pecking corn, then they're probably bored, so you need to pick it up a little bit. But if you're seeing that, you may need to slow down or pause. And there are so many tips for educators. And it all comes down to, do you know yourself and do you know how you're influencing them? And then are you able to assess the room and see this person's probably a little bit more analytical. You don't have to be 100% correct. This person may be a little bit more amiable. This person's more direct. Amiable people, expressive people, and direct people and analytic, they're all different. So if you're telling stories to someone who's a director who just wants to have they're just like, I just want to rip your eyelids off because you're so slow. Get to the point. So give them what they need to know right off the bat. Then tell the story for the expressive person, the amiable person. And then make sure you have some data and some research to back that up, if needed, for the analytical person.
Love
and
that.
So that was probably the most important thing for me to realize. And then make sure that you're always learning and that you're willing to accept feedback. And the bad feedback is sometimes the best feedback, because you have to be able to say, okay, I can see how I can do that. Let me not do that again.
Right. Yeah, I love that. If, someone wants to learn more about their social style, I feel like, we're very self-aware. We are able to put ourselves in that expressive category. When you were mentioning, waving the hands, I'm very gesticular. And my first mentor, shout out to Scott Poland, great educator as well. He was like, he heard me, present. He was like, what the hell are you doing with your hands? Like, what? Jeez, are you like doing sign language up there? Like, I didn't hear anything you said because you were just dancing. I was like, what do you mean? Right. And at that time, as a young, I don't know, I couldn't have been more than like 20 years old. Right. I'm like, how dare you? Like,
Right.
And that I think that stems off, again, being able to absorb that feedback. Like, that to me was not a positive feedback, but it was crucial and necessary for me to continue to develop and learn and grow as a presenter and understand my social style, just as you mentioned, so that I can cater to those in the room, so they're actually absorbing whatever it is that we're sharing. But is there a place that someone can go or learn more or take a quiz or something or in that nature of, understanding their social style and how to adapt with the other
Yes, you can
styles?
go to, and you know what? There's a company now who's actually taken over the social style. I just went blank on the company name, but if you just typed in social styles, you'll just Google it or DuckDuckGo it, whatever platform you use. It'll pull up, and I just totally went blank on the actual name of the company. And they have books, they have all kinds of stuff. I'd walk back there and get that, but it'd be a waste of time. That you can read through, because it's extremely valuable if you're going to do any form of communication. Anything in the service industry is communication. So therefore it would be helpful. But yeah, there is. Just DuckDuckGo it or Google it and you'll find it for sure.
Okay, cool. That's easy enough. And I love that you brought that up. I think sometimes when people think of an educator, they think very niche, just someone that's presenting, educating teachers of some sort. But I love that you reference that if you're communicating really with anyone at any time, the objective of you having a conversation with someone is meeting them where they're at, understanding how they're going to absorb whatever it is you're saying, even in just a social situation when you're out with your friends and you want to, quote, educate them on your day or something that you read or experienced on your vacation. It's like, how are they going to just absorb and process what it is that you're saying to just be better communicators in general? Do you feel like there's some like do's and don'ts? I feel like you hit on it, but was there anything else kind of like wisdom nuggets that you want to make sure we get as far as from the educating and speaking standpoint?
Yeah, the don'ts are, don't assume
Hmm.
that everyone is like you. And that stems from, that's why I said, number one, know yourself. Who are you? How do you respond? And how can people be responding to you? Remember, when you're standing in front of a room or you're standing in front of a client or someone else, it's a relationship. Whether you know it or not, it's a relationship. And a relationship is constituted on the ability to communicate. And the ability to communicate then establishes your rapport with that person and creates trust. The more trust someone has in you, the more that they're going to open up to you and the more you're going to get authentic communication. So don't assume that someone is going to specifically gravitate to you just because you think you're great. And don't ever stop learning, and don't ever stop inviting feedback. Mm-hmm. And be willing to evaluate yourself. How did that go for you? How did you feel about it? Not just other people's feedback, but your own feedback. So my whole philosophy and tips around how to be a better educator, how to do these things, are much more about understanding who you are inside, what you're all about, and why are you doing that? Are you choosing to have humility? Are you choosing to be empathetic? Are you choosing to have compassion? When you get asked a question, do you hear the question, or have you already started processing your answers? Mm-hmm. And that's something that, again, I'll give total credit to Bobby Capuccio, who really brought this to my eyes when I heard it, because it was like, oh yeah, wow, how important is that? But questions, whether it's from a client or it's in front of a group of people that you're working with, questions actually open up the door for learning to occur. If you're standing there in a monologue, there may not be any learning, because depending on how your level of delivery is dependent upon the person, you may be way over somebody's head or way below somebody's head. So the ability to allow questions, and then to be able to hear the question, and not just hear the question, but watch the questioner. How are they questioning it? What are their mannerisms? Because that'll give you insight into where the question is coming from or what they're actually trying to say. So there's sometimes you can see it's a heartfelt question. And I've seen people do this in actual workshops where they're asking a question and they're actually touching their heart, or they're actually embracing themselves. That means that this is an emphatic point. And if you don't realize that what you're about to say is going to influence them in a very deep level, because they're showing that to you, you could really miss the boat and you could lose that person, but other people in the room can pick up on that. So that's the importance of your do's and don'ts. And if you're more concerned about them and not yourself, but you know how you could influence someone in that, then you're way ahead of the game.
Noted. Everyone, note that one down. And I think it stems from when I think of asking questions, when you were referencing about building that relationship being a crucial piece, because if that's not developed and that trust isn't there, you're not going to get the questions regardless. And then that will kind of diminish the opportunity to learn. So I think it all plays in. Now, you've brought up a couple times speaking in front of people. I want to go into that. I don't know if you've seen the research, but it's mind-blowing. So apparently, public speaking is the most feared thing on the earth. The second most feared thing is death. So that tells us statistically that people are more afraid by 2 times, I think it's like 19% to 40%, of speaking in front of people. Now, I don't feel like you have any fear of that. And if you do, you hide it very well. What are some things that people can do? Obviously, public speaking sometimes is necessary. We're not talking on a grandeur, level of a, forum, but even just in front of 5 people terrifies individuals. Do you have some keynotes for us on how to feel more comfortable, confident, or just overcome that fear of public speaking?
Yeah. And so redundantly, number one is know yourself. Because a lot of the fear of speaking is the fear of being judged. And the fear of being judged means I don't know how comfortable I am with what I'm about to do. So that would be a huge part of that. So that being said, the other things you can do is record yourself. We have phones and we have video. Record yourself, or do it in the mirror, to where you can actually see what you're doing and you can start to gain confidence. Like, wow, I noticed that I'm always waving my right hand. Okay, so now I don't know how to do that, because people will pick up on that. I remember, I'll never forget, I did a course one time and someone came up to me at the end of the course and they said, do you know that you said awesome like 27 times? So I said,
you said awesome.
That's awesome. I said, you know what? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because no, I did not do it. And I appreciate that, because I can guarantee you the next time I speak, I won't say awesome 27 times. So it really comes down to, if you're not comfortable in front of people, get in front of something that you can actually just talk with. Because what you'll realize is one of the biggest things we don't have, and this will be talked about probably later on anyway, one of the biggest things we don't have is awareness. We're not self-aware. We don't know what words we actually use. Some people don't realize how much they swear in an education thing. And I bring that up because more people will be put off by swearing than would be not put off by it. So people don't walk out of an educational process and say, wow, I wish he would have used more swear words. They'll never say that, but they will say it the other way. So I'm just using that as an example, is if you understand what you do, what your mannerisms are, what your facial expressions are, you record yourself so you can hear what words you say. How many times do you go, because all of that, after about the third time, starts to interfere with what people are at, because they're like, dude's saying, a whole lot. And now that becomes their focus. So these things about being self-aware, get in front of yourself, get in front of the mirror, record yourself, and just start paying attention to how you work, because that will start to build your confidence. Like, okay, I learned this, I learned that, I learned that. Realize you will never please everyone all the time. That's another one. And then third, and simply, breathe. Just breathe. Before you go on, breathe. Calm yourself down. Breathing, deep breathing. You don't have to get fancy with all the 2 to 3 seconds inhale, 2 to 3 seconds exhale. Go through your nose. It stimulates the brain better. Okay? If you want to ramp yourself up, use your mouth. If you want to calm yourself down, use your nose. And just breathe. And just make sure that what you're about to say, you have an awareness for. You do not have to be perfect. Some people think they have to go out and speak perfectly. Nobody speaks perfectly, whether they think they do or not. So that's what I would say, simplistically. While there are a trillion things to do, number one, get in front of yourself, know yourself, and record yourself. Breathe. And just understand what you're about to do. That's all.
I was taking deep breaths. Thank you for the breathing reminder. The whole time you were speaking, I was on the edge of my seat. I don't think I breathed. So thank you for that.
And that's an awareness thing. But see, you picked it up, RC. Most people don't know how they breathe. Well, breathing is automatic. Breathing is automatic, but breathing is one of the few autonomic responses that we can actually control that changes your whole being. So use it.
Yeah, love that. I also love someone had mentioned once, it sounds kind of harsh when they just say it bluntly, where nobody cares or nobody's thinking of you. But when you think of it in that context, sometimes we go, after we've presented or something and we're over analyzing, we're just creating this anxiousness in our own minds. And the reality is probably when you got off of that stage or finished speaking with somebody, they're done thinking about you. They're not going home and being like, wow, that presenter really flinched her shoulder 70 times or said awesome 27 times. Like, they're done thinking about you, like, in the nicest way possible. Again, it's like, we don't want to be judged. And I think you reiterated that that's where the fear is. Like you said, you can't please the people all the time. They are going to judge, but then they're going to forget about it. And I think that's a reminder to ourselves. If everyone else forgot about how they were perceiving and judging it, I mean, we can, in our own minds, let that go as well.
Yeah. And one of the things too is know why you're there. What is the purpose for you being in front of that group?
Mm-hmm.
If it's to tell your life story, just be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
If it's to convey information or to help other people learn something, then it's about them. So if you understand, if you don't know what humility is, look it up. If you don't know what empathy is, look it up. If you don't know what compassion is, look it up. But if you keep that the focus and it's on the people that are in front of you, your focus is about the people in front of you without you trying to unauthentically convey that. So it's not like you're pointing everyone out. Body language, which facial expressions and eye contact and your gestures, that will do more than the words that come out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. How you say something will be far more important in the long run than what you actually said. Because if how you're saying it is true and authentic, and it's about those people, they become a word that I will use later, engaged. If you're engaging them, you're connecting with them. And if they're connected and they're engaged, then they will remember you when you get off the stage. And you don't need them to remember you, but if they're remembering that, that means they're remembering something that you have just conveyed to them. Mm-hmm. But it has to be through humility, compassion, empathy, because it's about them. If you make it about yourself, it doesn't mean people won't learn. It just means that you've conveyed to everyone that it's about you. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on what do you want to leave people with? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to help them, or are you trying to promote yourself?
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily influence the learning, because people will still learn from someone who's promoting themselves. But it's what do you want to deliver to someone? That's all.
Mm-hmm. And being aware of which those are, which one is your intention and going into that audience. Love all of that. I want to segue a bit into the educating from a place of program design. I'm sure I've never seen one of your programs, but I can only imagine that these are the most immaculate programs that have ever been designed. Do you have again, kind of with the tips or tricks, maybe a tool or a resource for our fitness professionals, health and wellness professionals that might be tuning in, that it's a part of our job, right? To create these programs. Is there a way to expedite that? Is there such thing as a perfect program, or kind of chat us through in your experience how to curate a really quality program for a client?
So is there a perfect program? Yeah. Will you get it? Maybe not.
Yeah, I love the honesty there.
Yeah. So everyone, there's a perfect program, but it will not be the same. So first off, let's talk about a program. A program is a template. I don't care when it's made, if it was 100 years ago or if it's right now, right in front of you, it's a template and it will change. Mm-hmm. If that program doesn't change, you probably didn't do your job, meaning if you didn't modify it in some form or fashion. That's just that's something that I so desperately tried to convey when I was at NASM, that we would write programs and they were very systematic and they're awesome. They're awesome. NASM is an awesome organization. And you have those programs, but that program will not map to that person every day. So you're going to have to adapt that in order to adapt to that person. So first and foremost, know your program as a template. Secondly, everything we've talked about to this point applies. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to give that person the program, or are you trying to give that person your program because you think it's great? Mm-hmm. It could be, but just remember, number one, whose program is it for the person in front of you? Number two, are they the same as you? And number three, do you know what they want and need? So that's the whole process. The closest process that there was, unfortunately, was through a company called PTA Global, that myself, Bobby Capuccio, Ian O'Dwyer, Michelle Dalcourt, Richard Boyd, Scott Hobson, that we developed using tons of people in the industry. It no longer exists, unfortunately. It was purchased by a company and then dissolved. But what we did is we brought in the behavior sciences, a program that is only exercise science oriented, doesn't necessarily map to the person. So all the stuff we've talked about, what type of person are you dealing with? What things do they like and not like? If you're giving someone exercises they do not like, that is no different than putting them on stage and letting them speak in front of somebody. It's the same thing. You're going to create anxiety in this person. So when you figure, why do people just stop coming? One, probably because they got injured. Well, why did they get injured? Because that's one of the number one reasons why people stop training, is because they had some type of ache, pain, injury. Why are they getting injured? Because you're not giving them the exercises and the amount of stress that they can handle, because you're not actually doing that on a day-to-day basis. And or two is it doesn't really map or connect with them because there are different styles of training and they go with different personality traits. So there are people who are traditional exercises. You can give them barbell exercises. You can give them your typical squats and curls and dumbbell stuff, and it's a free way. I love that. Anything you open up a magazine typically and see, that's your traditional exerciser. Then you have people who are a little bit more progressive, meaning they like things that are kind of funky weird. Traditional people don't want to get funky weird. You go into a gym, they don't want to be looked at. They don't want people to think, what the heck are you doing? But there are people who they want to grab like a viper that's sitting back there, and they want to do some type of exercise that you wouldn't do with a barbell. You could, but you look weird. Or a dumbbell, or you want to pick up a tool. A lot of times TRX exercises, people look at that and they're just intimidated. So the type of equipment used and the type of exercise being performed, is it three-dimensional or is it kind of one or two-dimensional? I say that not totally mechanically correct, but those make a big difference. If someone has never trained before and they come to you, or someone has been training, do you know how to find out, are you someone who wants progressive exercises, or are you someone who wants more traditional exercises? Or are you someone who, I can do both? And sometimes it depends on the day. So people who are more of a hybrid, sometimes when they're really stressed, they just want to go traditional. I don't have to think too much, of this one will move. When they're feeling good, I want to get a little more weird. Some people are straight up progressive. I want to always move weird. I want to do reciprocating hand motions. I want to go side to side. And some people are traditional. You know what? Just give me some load and let me just blow it up. That is one of the most vital ways to connect with your client. Again, it's a relationship. Building a program is putting a relationship. It's like writing a love letter. If what you put on there, those words don't map to that person, like, what did you just call me? Then your program isn't mapping to who they are. So if you want retention, you got to make sure that happens. Now, the unfortunate aspect is PTA Global no longer exists, and those documents and all of that fun, cool stuff that we had developed doesn't exist anywhere anymore. So you need to find out, what types of equipment is someone comfortable with right now? Doesn't mean they won't do it later, but what are they comfortable with right now? What types of exercises do they like? What have they done before? What did they like and what did they not like? Because then you can start gravitating to what they like so it feels comfortable. As they build trust in you, they will migrate to things that maybe they weren't comfortable with. So those are the easiest ways, without being able to, I mean, I have all the documents on my computer, but instead of being able to hand you our trainers, here's 5 questions you can ask. Here's 3 things you can do. Here's examples of those exercises. The easiest thing is find out who they are, what do they like, what kinds of things do they like to do, why do they want to do these things, and what are they comfortable doing right now?
Write those bullet notes down.
Keep it simple, but make it about them.
Mm-hmm.
We had a whole basic evaluation process through PTA Global, and it's all it is just asking them questions. What is your goal? Fantastic. And listen to the words that they say, by the way, because the words they use will have meaning to them. So don't use your words, use their words. Just communication 101.
All right, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen more than you speak when you're trying to learn.
What kind of equipment, what kind of exercises, what do they like, what do they don't like? Get that information. What are some of the things that they do as hobbies? What is their current activity level? So you can get insight to what they actually do and what kind of things do they like to do. That stems the conversation and or leads into the exercises you may select. And then find out, why is this so important to them? What is it that you really want to accomplish? And how confident are they that they can accomplish that? And then finish with a question like this: how can I help you? If they answer that question, listen to it, because they're going to tell you what they want you to do. Because it may not be scream at them, may not be yell at them, or it may be. Some people said, I need someone to motivate me. I need someone to get on my butt when I'm not doing it right, or when I need to do more of it. So do that. But if they don't say that, say, I just need someone to really help me on my journey to make sure that I am doing the things that I should be doing to get to where I'm going. If you just do what they tell you to do, you'll be great. That's the easiest thing about training, that we try to take and embrace and make, oh, I got to know all this and I got to do all that. Yeah, you need all the information. But what do they want to happen? Remember, they're the ones with the money.
Yeah, asking those questions and customizing that program, and again, just building that relationship seems to be that overarching theme. Shout out to all my clients I ever had. Thanks for always being the progressive, funky bubble and doing all my weird shit that I made you do. For always being down to do made up exercises. And I want to go back. You've mentioned the behavioral science. Huge fan of that. Chat with us about that, as well as you're a mindset coach. Can you share with us the difference between, maybe a behavioral change certification, a mindset coach, and then what does a mindset coach do? Because I'm thinking like Jedi mind tricks. You get people to forever follow the perfect program and do what you tell them. Like, I assume that's not it. So can you please clarify what a mind coach specifically is?
Yeah, ultimately, we're talking about changing behavior. So it's understanding, and if I can encapsulate it to change behavior, let's keep it very simple. Number one, you have to be aware. If you're not aware, then you're not aware, you're clueless. So awareness is the realization that something exists. In this case, it's I have a certain behavior and I have to be aware of it, or someone I'm working with has a certain behavior, I have to be aware of that, or help them be aware of that. Once you're aware of something, now you can take an action. So now you have something that you can do because now you realize that something actually exists. So once you take the action, now you have accountability and or adjustments that you should be making from that. So every action is going to produce a response, and you are accountable for that response. So what are you going to do with the response? Did it benefit or did it not benefit? If it didn't benefit, then you have to adjust it. If it did benefit, then great. Making sure that it's just a wheel and it goes around and around and around and around and around. And so that's the most important thing. And realizing that different people have different social interactive abilities. And they're not all like you. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong and you're right. And it doesn't mean you're wrong and they're right. It just means, do you understand what's about to happen? So your mindset is your thought processes. How are you thinking and communicating with yourself about yourself and or others in situations? So there are simplistically open mindsets and there are closed mindsets. There are some people who think this is the way I am, I can't change. Okay, that's a closed mindset. It's not accurate. It's incomplete because this might be the way you are, but it can change. It's a choice. Change is a choice. Ultimately, change is a choice. When we're trying to get someone to change their behavior, we won't change their behavior because we can externally impose things on them, demands, whatnot, that may influence them to do something, but until they internalize that, until it becomes an internal motivator where they're the ones that are actually deciding to make the change, it's not going to last, basically, from science. It doesn't mean that a doctor's threat that you're going to die because you're smoking is going to change anyone from smoking. Obviously, if it did, then everyone would stop smoking. But they don't. So why? It's because they haven't internalized it, and the benefits of change don't outweigh the benefits of no change. And this goes back to a whole process. What is your grid? Do you understand what the change would entail? What are the benefits of change versus what are the benefits of not changing? And then what's the harm in changing versus what's the harm in not changing? So when you put those two together, you create more of a complete picture. So it's understanding, it's helping people to get to understand that if that's something that they want to do. So understanding what your mindset is, what's the thought process, what is someone, and usually you can tell someone's thought processes usually by their body language and by their communication, what they're saying. Out of the mouth comes the overflow of the heart. So whatever's in here is going to end up out there at some point. It may take more stress to induce it, but at some point it's going to come out. So that's how you can tell how other people and where their mindset is. Do not be confused with people who laugh and smile all the time as being happy. So I can attest to that for a long period of time. I was class clown, but I was class clown to cover up stuff that I was going through in my high school years. So it doesn't mean that people are happy. And that's why sometimes when those people go through trials and issues, like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. There's more to it. There's much more to it than that. So in essence, mindset is just about understanding, being a mindset coach is understanding what's the process that's going on inside your head and inside someone's head. How do I know that? How do they look? How do they act? And how do they talk? And that's what it is. But if you don't do that on yourself first, it becomes very lopsided and you create and bring in a lot of bias into that. And that can be dangerous.
Yeah, love that. I mean, I could see where that would be hugely beneficial for self and for those of whom you're working with. Where would one go to, again, learn more about that or become certified within, what mindset?
I don't even know if the mindset coach is around anymore. That was something that was done.
Oh, you just teased us like that,
yeah, we acquired that. But there's a lot of different processes out there that are very similar. And that was all done through a great friend, and we had that at PTA Global, and it was part of the process that we did. And then it was through PTA on the Net, which neither one of those exist anymore. So when you've been around a long time, you see a lot of things come and go. But there are I'm sure
that wisdom
tons of things that are out there right now that talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So just kind of continuing to always be learning and taking that upon your own self to learn about, mindset and change and stages of change and behavioral science and kind of just going down that rabbit hole and educating. Because I do feel like, what you're saying is viable, very, very important in building relationships and connections. I want to make sure we have time to cover the questions we ask every single guest, because I know you're gonna bring some heat, my man. Have you selected 3 words for our Of course you have. I know they're going to be good ones. We have our Fiber Foundations moment. You've pre-selected 3 words that you feel are pillars, links that we can add to our database that are necessary to success interpersonally, career, however you want to take that. The mic is yours, Rodney. What 3 words are you bringing to the table today?
So one is one already used. So first one is engagement. So engage, equip, and empower. Those are the 3 words that I have been using since 2006. That's been kind of the 3 pillars, which now show up in the Eleiko education process.
Yes. Walk us through those 3 a little bit more in depth. As you mentioned, you've spoken about the first one, but elaborate a tad, on the other 2, why they're important, what they encompass.
Yeah. So as we said, first off, when we're going and doing things, we need to engage, and whether that's ourselves or whether that's others. And engage is about connecting. So if you don't connect, then the equipping and empowering are lost. So that's where the foundations, the fundamental thing is, can you engage, yes or no, and are you engaging? And then how you are engaging. Because if you're engaging, you're connecting, you're building trust. Once you have that, then you can equip. And equip is investing and building up whatever it is that you're trying to do. If it's with a client, if it's with a group of people that you're educating, is you're equipping them with the right tools to be better at something than they are now or that they think they can be. And it's the same for yourself. So all these things apply, and it should be always a 2-way street. You should always be working on yourself so you can benefit others. That's how I feel. And then the empowerment is something that should come. Empowerment basically just means, by the actual word itself, is I'm going to put power into this. It means I'm now giving that authority to take control and to do things into someone else. So they're not reliant upon someone else. I don't want people to leave any education, anything that I do, and feel like they have to rely upon me to validate themselves or to necessarily help themselves. Not that we can't communicate and can't talk and help continually equip, but ultimately there should be where they now feel from almost the immediate moment, if you engage someone correctly, where they feel empowered, they feel like there's a sense of, I feel a little bit more confident and competent just through the engagement process that we have. Because if you do that, that empowerment is what ultimately helps them. And that's ultimately what will then kind of continually increase their ability to do what they want to do. Doesn't mean we don't all slip and fall and do things, but we always have the ability to go through a process. So that's what Engage, Equip, Empower is about. It's about building up. And building up where people are in control of that building up, meaning it's in their realm to choose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are awesome words to be added to our bank here. Today's Fiber Foundation moment brought to you by the letter E. Sounds like I love it.
E3.
Yeah,
E-cube. I know
E to the
PJ
cube.
Global, we had one. Bobby had a different one, but we call it E-cube. So it's.
Yeah, I love it. Keeping it easy to remember. I like the alliteration. That's how a learning style, easy for me to absorb. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for keeping that easy to retain. Yeah. And then our final question here today, we want to know, what do you wish you would have had known if you could go back and look, 18-year-old self and have a conversation? What are some steps that we can skip or wisdom that you can provide for all of us that now that you wish you would have had known earlier?
We've just talked about it. That's been that everything that we've said to this point is know yourself. I don't think most people know themselves well enough. And that's where we get into relational problems. We get into, my clients are leaving me and they're lazy and they're this and they're that. Well, have you ever taken the accountability that it might be you? Yeah. My clients, they're always getting hurt. Maybe are you doing something? People don't seem to learn, and I keep getting this bad feedback from people and they're not getting it. As an educator, well, it might be you. So I wish I would have known that at 18, that how I am socially may have actually deterred a lot of people and created more conflict than it needed to do. It may have hindered. So those are the things. And that's why when I said at the beginning, I never had a specific mentor to sit me down and walk me through, here are some things that you're going to go through. Everyone will. But there are ways that you can get ahead of that. It's not that you're not going to go through them, but you can get ahead of it and understand maybe what's happening and your role in it. I think we get lost in our part in conflict. And we want to put conflict that, or conversely, we put all of it on ourselves, like it's all our fault. When no, this is what happened. I can see what I can do there. You can't control what other people can do. However, you can influence what they can do or will do. So I think that's one of the biggest things for me that I would have liked to learn then. And to know that there are multiple ways to get something done. There is not one way. People who go through a certification process, that certification may be awesome, but it is not the only way. Dig. If you really want to advance in your career in this industry specifically, or any industry, dig in and find things out. Ask questions. Ask questions that may go against what the mass population is saying, or most of the research is saying. Dig in and find out, is there something behind all of that? That's been something that took me a long time to get to that. I wish I would have known that a long time ago, even though I was always kind of counter what everyone else did. But those are important because that turns you into having more breadth and depth to what you're about to do. And you mix that with someone who has humility, compassion, and empathy, you're a rock star.
Yeah, I love that. I said breadth and depth added to. I think that's really beautiful.
Mhm.
Mhm. And helping build again that common thread of relationships and connections, which then allows you to create those influences and empower others. Is there anything on your heart? I'm going to open it up. Anything on your heart we haven't discussed, or thoughts, feelings, knock knock jokes, anything you want to end with?
No, no, I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to share with people. That's something that has just always been a passion of mine. So I always thank the good Lord for the ability to be able to share with people, and having gone through many trials and tribulations, but understanding the power of them. So
Well, we all are equally as grateful, if not more, for the work you do in our industry. Because of your educating, you help us empower and save the lives through health and fitness. So thank you so much for making us the best that we possibly can as health and wellness professionals. And I hope everyone listening really takes that to heart. I know I myself am now more aware of self-awareness, and going to continue to keep that front of mind and focused. And I hope we all do as well. But my favorite fellow RC, it has been a pleasure chatting. Thank you so much for your time. And I know we'll chat soon.
you're very welcome. Thank you, Arson.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed something from today's conversation, let us know by giving this episode a like, chatting in the comments, and sharing it with your friends. We always love to hear from you, so you can send email messages to podcast@fibr.fit and connect with us on Instagram @FitBridgePodcast for even more exclusive content. Special thanks to our friends at Winner Productions for all things audio and post edits. And on behalf of the entire staff here at Fiber, it's been my absolute pleasure helping bridge community to opportunity. Until next time, make sure you click that subscribe button for more episodes and go download the Fiber app today for all of your health and fitness industry needs.